Evening, my YouTube viewers. It's Crystal here. In this video, what we're going to cover is Lesson 2 of my Advanced Excel course. And so Lesson 2 is going to be a little bit more difficult than the previous lessons. And the reason why is because we're going to be using Power Query. So Power Query is a separate module within Excel that allows you to clean up data and update data. And so basically it's used, if you have a spreadsheet that you get every week or every month or every so often, and you have to update the data in the new spreadsheet with the data that you have in your existing spreadsheet. Now, I don't really use Power Query that much because in the work I do, I get a spreadsheet every week. Now, whether or not the people that send me Power Query, that's a different matter entirely. But I get given a new spreadsheet every week that I have to manipulate every week. But I've been spending a week studying Power Query, and so I'm going to go over everything that I personally have learned and picked up in Power Query, and I will show you what I learned. First thing about Power Query is what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to import files into Power Query. So basically you're going to be sent a file from somebody and you're going to have to import that file, and that is not your file. That is a file that has been sent to you. And so the two files that I'm going to be using in this video, one file is going to be called Dirty Data, and then the next file is going to be called Titanic dataset. So we're having two files. The first one is Dirty Data, and the second one is the Titanic dataset. So those are the two files that we're going to be using in this video. So Dirty Data, I sort of like made it up myself. And the Titanic dataset, I got that from the internet, and I'm using it because I wanted to use the Titanic dataset. And the reason why is because when I first started studying data science, I went on to Kaggle, and one of the first competitions that you can enter is the Titanic competition. And so that's why I wanted to use the Titanic dataset. So what we're going to do is by now, you should already know how to get into Excel. So we're going to just skip all that part, and we're going to go right into Excel. So what we're going to do in this video, we're on Lesson 2, and I've got my project timeline. So you can see that I started working on Lesson 2 on 11 August, and it is now 18 August. So you can see I've been working on it for a week, studying it. So I'm going to type 18 Aug 26 to let you know that I've been working on it for 7 days, and you can see we've got 7 days here. And then so when I finished Lesson 2, I'm going to go ahead and start Lesson 3. So I'm just going to say 18 Aug 26 as well. So I'm going to start Lesson 3 when I finish Lesson 2. And when I finish this video, I will be finished with Lesson 2. So the first thing we're going to do in Lesson 2, this is going to be Power Query. And you can see I've already done a little bit of work on Power Query using the Dirty Dataset, Titanic 3, which you're going to get a table, and Titanic 3, which is going to be a pivot table. So that's everything I've done to study this data set. Okay, so we're we're going to do it again. Even though I've done it several times to study it, we're going to do it again to show you how to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to move sheet 7 down. And so we're going to say lesson 2. We're going to say lesson 2, dirty data. So that's what we're going to be looking for, dirty data. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to load this data. So you're going to go into the data tab. So we're in the data tab. And we're going to get the data. We're going to get the data from a file. And in this instance, it's going to be an Excel workbook. So we're going to go into dirty data. And we're going to import it. And we're just waiting for it to do something. We're going to click on to dirty dataset because that's what we want to use. And then we're going to transform it. So basically what we're doing is we're creating an ETL pipeline. And ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. So we have already extracted the data. And now we're going to transform it, and then we're going to load it. So this is data that we got. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to remove any null rows. Any null rows, we're going to remove them. So we're going to say remove rows, and it says remove blank rows. So, and you can see over here in applied steps. So everything that we do is going to be in applied steps. And if you want to undo something that you have done, then what you do is you click on the X next to the applied step. And then what that will do is that will remove that step. But we're not going to remove that step. We're going to keep it. So now the null row has been deleted. So we're not going to have a null row anymore. And so basically, we've got a bunch of customers. So you've got your customer name, which is going to be ABC. And then you've got a null, and then another null, and then a date, and then a Windows computer, and then a price per unit, and then a quantity. So what you could do, if you wanted to, is you could replace that null with another name, if that's what you wanted to do. But I personally am a little bit reluctant to replace null values with another name. That's me personally. And another thing that you can do is you can fill a null value. So this null has been typed in, but this null is a null value that's in place. So if you wanted to, you could fill a null value where it says fill, and you could fill the value up or you could fill the value down. But I'm a bit hesitant about using the fill command. I would rather find out exactly what that data was referring to. That's how I would like to deal with it. So that's what you want to do. You want to find out what that data is referring to. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace it. You can do anything you want. You can do a replace, like you can come over here and you can say replace values, and then you can say like replace null. We're going to replace null, and then so we're just going to say hypothetically I did some research and I found out that this should have been Irish Mike. So we're going to replace null with Irish Mike. So now instead of a null value, we're going to have Irish Mike in there. But it's up to you what you want to do it. You can actually fill null values, but that wasn't a null value. That was just somebody had typed null in there. So you could fill the null value with, you double click on that and you can fill it down or up. But me personally, I wouldn't do it. I would do replace values or replace errors. And me personally, I would go in and I would find out exactly what that cell is supposed to be. So now we've got the email address. And so your email, so you can see here, the customer name is going to be text. And you can see here that your email address is going to be text as well. See how many nulls we've got. We've got only one null. So you're going to say replace null. Let's see what we've got. Let's see what we got. See what happens. We'll say I.Mike at. See if this works. We're going to replace null with imike@gmail.com. And it worked. So we replaced null with i.mike@gmail.com. And so we don't have any more errors. So you can see here under customer name, we've got 100% valid, 0 error, 0 empty. Email address, 100% valid, 0 error, 0 empty. Now you've got order date. You've got it as a date and a text file. So we're going to come over here and we want everything to be a date. But let's just, before we do that, this is just what I would do. So the first date for Sarah Jane O'Neill, we're going to say, I'm writing this down, Sarah Jane is going to be, it says 3/15/24. So I'm going to say 15 March 24. Okay. And then with Mickey Mouse, it's going to be 5 April 24. And with Homer Simpson, it's going to be 16 May 24. And so what we're going to do in this particular instance, we're going to use the fill command. But even I personally, if it was me, I personally wouldn't use the fill command. I would go through and find the documentation and find out what the actual date was supposed to be. But for the purpose of this exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to fill the errors. So the first thing we're going to do is, so it should be under date. So you click on this, so it's going to be date. So you click on to date. So now it's not a text or a number. It is actually a date. And so valid, you don't know what the valid is. Error, you don't know what the error is. And empty, you don't know what empty is. So you double click onto, so now you've got something in error. So you double click onto order date, and you can say fill down. See what happens. Let's just see what happens. No, that didn't work. So I'm going to say replace errors. So now we're going to say enter the value that will replace the errors in the selected columns. So in this particular thing, what we're going to do is just to replace the error, we're going to say 1, we're going to say 01-01-2024. So now what you can do is you can say everything that 01-01-2024, you're going to replace that. You're going to know that that was an error, and you're going to have to go back and maybe find the correct date or something like that. So you're always going to have problems like this. Power Query, I mean, it's good for quick and dirty work, but me personally, if it was me personally, I would go through the file and I would actually find out what the data was supposed to be. But Power Query is a very powerful tool that's supposed to help you do things quickly. And then so here we've got Sarah Jane is 1 January 24, and Mickey Mouse is, that says 4 May 24. And then we've got Homer Simpson. Let's try to find Homer Simpson. It's 16 May 24. So what that did was that filled it down. So you can see, and that's why I'm a little bit dubious about these fill replace ones. So this one, the first one, Sarah Jane, we said replace it with 1 January 24, and it did do it. But if we come over here to Mickey Mouse, it says 4 May 24. And then if we come over here to Homer Simpson, it says 16 May 24. So we can go to Sarah Jane and we can say, double click on this. We're going to double click. And we're going to say, replace values, and we're going to say replace it with 13/3/24. So 01/01/2024, and we're going to replace it with 13 March 24, 13/03/2024. So we're going to say replace with 13-03-2024. And so we're going to say okay. So now it's not 1 January 2024, it's 13th March 2024. So you can replace the values with anything that you want, which is what I have done. That because you're saying that the spreadsheet that you're loading in is not actually your spreadsheet. It's spreadsheet from somebody else. But I think that you have to be really careful when you just arbitrarily fill things. But you can do it. It does give you the capability to fill it. So we have the product is a text and 100% valid, 100% error, 100% empty. And then you have price per unit is a number. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the price per unit and we're going to make it a float. No. So we're going to remove other columns. We're going to remove that because that was a mistake. So you can see how if you did something and you don't want to do it, then you can go back and change it. But so we're going to say price per unit. It says 1, 2, 3, so that's a digit, but we're going to make it a decimal number. So now your price per unit is going to be a decimal number. And then now we're going to have the quantity. And then so we're going to take the quantity and we're going to make it a whole number. So if you got this quantity and you got a whole number, then that means you went into error on some of those. So some of these are in error. And so basically, I know that the error is 2. So rather than being the number 2, it gives you the value of 2. So we're going to double click on quantity. And we're going to say replace errors. And we're going to replace errors with 2. But I just happen to know that everything that was 2 was an error. So again, it's a little bit difficult to do this. And what I personally would do is I would update the main spreadsheet, but if you update the main spreadsheet, then you're causing yourself a lot of problems as well. And then so now what we're going to do, we've got the price per unit and you've got the quantity. So we're going to add a column. We're going to come over here to where it says standard. And oh, sorry, I made a mistake. You're going to click onto price per unit. And then you're going to click onto control. And then you're going to click onto quantity. So now what you've got is you've got your price per unit and your quantity. And you want to multiply the price per unit by the quantity. So you're clicking onto the add column tab and you're going to go to standard. And then we're going to click on to multiply. And then so what you're doing is you're adding the column and you're going to multiply the quantity times the price. So you can say here, so what we've done is you've changed the name of the column. So now what you do is you're multiplying the price per unit times the quantity. So after you have done all that and you sorted out your spread and you sorted out your query, and you can see you've got your applied steps. And if you did something and you changed your mind and you didn't want to do it, you can go click on the X and that will enable you to undo what you have done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go home and we're going to do close and load. You can say close and load. So now we've got our dirty data set, and then so I'm just going to make this so we've got our data, and then basically you've got it in the spreadsheet. And then so we've loaded it. And so basically what you're going to do is, like, let's say next week you got some more data. So, and that means you're going to have to update this data next week. So you're going to go into Dirty Data. So we've got Metal Marvin as being the last one. So we're going to say Antonio, America. So you're going to say Antonio, America, and then you're going to say the email address is a.america@email.com. And then we're going to say order date. So we're going to say the order date is 2 July 24. The order date is 2 July 24. And he's going to order a tablet cover. And then so the price of the tablet cover is 20. It's going to be 20 pounds. And then so basically he's going to order a tablet cover for himself and his wife. So he's going to order 2 tablet covers. So it was last modified just now. So since it was modified, we're going to close it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we've got Dirty Dataset. So we're going to go into Dirty Dataset. So we've got our Dirty Dataset. So Metal Marvin is the last one we did. So you can see refresh preview. And you've got Antonio America as your refresh preview. And then so we're going to say refresh all. So you're going to refresh it. So when you refresh it all, we've added Antonio America to it. And the price is 40. So we're going to go back to, let's see what we've got. So we've got Antonio America. So we're going to refresh all of it. So you're going to refresh all of it. And when you refresh all of it, what it does is it has done everything that has done in the previous steps to the new steps, even to give you the new price, which is 40. So then you're going to go over to close and load, which I know I'm not pressing it very well. So we're going to refresh it again. We're going to refresh it. And then we're going to close and load it. So we're going to close and load it. And then when we close and load it, we're going to go into table design. And we're going to go into data, and where it says refresh all, we're going to refresh all of it. And then you can see when we hover our cursor pad around it, you can see that it was last refreshed at 2030. So it was last refreshed right now. And you can see we've got Antonio America in it. And so those are just a few things that you can do with Power Query. And so what that does is that enables you to get a spreadsheet that you get every week and then update that spreadsheet. And I personally have never used Power Query professionally because the spreadsheet that I get is already updated for me. So whether the people who send me the Power Query, whether the people that send me the spreadsheet use Power Query, I don't know because it's in another department. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use another data set, and we're going to use the Titanic 3 data set. If you just excuse me just 1 second. I had to get something to drink because my mouth gets really dry. So we're going to come to another one. So we're going to go to get data, and we're going to say from file, and we're going to say from Excel workbook. And in this one, what we want is we want the Titanic data set. And you can see that I just loaded that up, worked on that yesterday. So we're going to use the Titanic data set. So we're going to select Titanic 3 because that is the page that we're going to be looking at. And we're going to transform the data as well. So we're going to transform the data on the Titanic data set. So the Titanic was an actual event. So basically what happened was the Titanic sank in early 1900s. And what we're looking at is we are looking at a manifest from the Titanic data set. So we're looking at the passenger class, which is 1, 2, 3, and there's no errors and no empty values. We're looking at survived, again, which is a whole number, and it's 100% and an error and empty. And then we're going to get the names, which is a text. We're going to get the sex, which is text. It's telling you whether it's male or female. You're going to get the age, which is a decimal number, and 14% are empty. And if you wanted to replace the empty values, you could, but I'm not going to do it. But if you wanted to replace the empty values, you could replace the empty values. But I just want to leave it blank because this is historical data. The next one we have is SIB SP. So that means if you had a sibling or a partner with you, and it's 100% valid and no errors and no empties. And you've got PARCH, that's like a parent-child. And so that's 100% valid, no errors and no empties. You've got your ticket, that's a text value. So that's your ticket number. and it's a text value. So some of the tickets are numbers and some of the tickets are text. I'll just leave it as it is because this is actually historical data. So it doesn't do any good to change it because you're changing historical data. Fair is a decimal, and so you have 100% valid, no errors, and no empties. I see in one of them it says 0. I guess if they didn't know the fare, they put 0 down. Or maybe somebody paid their fare, or maybe they were a child. So let's see this one where it says 0. So it says it was first class. He didn't survive. Mr. Thomas Andrews Jr. He was a male. He was 39. He didn't have a sibling. He didn't have a partner or child. You got your ticket. You've got your fare, which is 0. I don't know why they said 0, but that's historical data, so that's why they said 0. You got your cabin, you got 28% valid, 72% empty. So some people, they didn't know what cabin they were, or maybe this data is just, they just didn't have it. And this is actually the manifest of what was on the Titanic. And only about 700 people, something like that, actually survived the Titanic. Maybe it was 500 passengers and 200 crew, because I looked it up, So embarked is interesting. So that's telling you where they embarked. So embarked is on 99% valid, 0% error, and less than 1% is empty. So I think that's the bottom one, I think. And there's like 1,300 people on this manifest. So the actual last column, so you actually had 1309 rows of data, and the 1310 is null. So this is a complete empty row. So it's a complete empty row. So what you can do is you can say remove rows, remove top rows, remove bottom rows, remove alternate rows. You're going to say remove bottom rows, and the number of rows to remove is 1. So we're going to remove the bottom row. And then when you remove the bottom row, it says embarked is still 0% error, embarked is less than 1%. So we're going to check this out again. We're removing the bottom rows. So we're going all the way down. So see right here, it says 1309. Originally, it was 1310, and 1310 was null. So we've got this. So basically, we're not going to make any major changes to it. And the reason why we're not going to make any major changes to it is because it's historical data. So we're going to refresh. So we're going to refresh it all. And so when we refreshed it, that 1310 has been removed. So now we're going to close and load it. So this is it, the Titanic 3 number 2. So you can see that it says 1310. It says number 1 is your passenger class. And that says 1310, which what we're going to do is we're going to go over to data and we're going to refresh it. So it says right here that it says right here 1310 is Zimmerman, but we're going to come back over here because it says 1309 is loaded. 1309 is what we've done. And we have removed the bottom row. And so Zimmerman is the bottom one. So we're just going to refresh it. And we're going to close and load it. And then you can hover around it and you can see that we have refreshed it at 2041 and it is now 2043. And then so it says 1309 rows loaded even though it's 1310. So the first row is your column headers. So we've done that. So now what we want to do is we want to create a pivot table. So we're going to go into table design and we're going to summarize it with a pivot table. And it's Titanic 3-2 and we're going to put it in another worksheet. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say lesson 2 Titanic 3.2 and this is our pivot table, and then we're going to say lesson 2 Titanic pivot. so you know you've made a pivot table. So you've got a pivot table here. So the first thing that we want to talk about is where you have embarked. So you've embarked from 3 places, and you can see we've got a blank there. So obviously there is a problem. So there shouldn't be a blank. So we're going to delete this, delete, and then we're going to say so there's some blanks in there. So it shouldn't be a blank in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for the blanks and find out what's happened. So you've got, it shouldn't be like that. So we've got iCard, Miss Amelia iCard. It said right there that there's no embark space. And then it said that Miss Georgia Stone, there's no embark place. So I'm just going to say iCard, and then I'm going to say Stone. Okay, so I'm going to go back to embarked, and we're going to select all of it. And then we're going to come back here. So it says less than 1% is empty on embarked. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace values. And I'm just going to try this. We're going to replace it with an S for Southampton and see what happens. Or what we'll do is we're going to say replace values. We're going to say no and S and see what happens. So yeah, we replace the no with an S, which is Southampton. And then so what we're going to do is we're going to refresh all. So we're going to refresh all of it. And then we're going to load it and close it. So we've got iCard is one of them. So you can see iCard should be embarked from S for Southampton. And then the next one is Stone. And again, that should be S as well. So thought it was Stone, Stone. That's what I thought it was. So what we'll do is we're going to hope for the best. And we're going to go to data. And we're going to refresh it all. And then you should just be able to hover around it. You should just be able to hover around it. And then you can see that it was refreshed at 2050 and it's 2050 now. So now we're going to go to table design. We're going to summarize with a pivot table. And we're going to say a new worksheet is going to be okay. And so we're going to say, lesson 2. Lesson 2, Titanic pivot. So we're going to say embarked. So you got 3 now. That C is for Chalfont, Q is for Queenstown, and S is for Southampton. And then we're going to come over here to class. So you've got 500 from Chalfont survived, 350, 500, 356, and 2140. But we're going to say count. We're going to say value field settings, and we're going to say count. So that's going to give you 1309. So you've got 270 from Chalfont, 123 from Queenstown, and 916 from Southampton. But let's just see what we've got. Take that out. Let's do survived. And then we're going to say value field settings, and we're going to do a count. And so it's just telling you that a count of survived, 1309, is total. But we're going to make it a sum of survived. And the reason why you're going to make it a sum of survived is because if they didn't survive, it's 0. And if they did survive, it's 1. So that's telling you how many people they have calculated as surviving. But this is a manifest of the passengers. It doesn't include the people who worked on the boat, on the ship. So it was actually somewhere a little over 700 people who actually survived the Titanic. And you can also check their sex. So you can say, this is another thing. It's telling you 102 females and 48 males survived from Chalfont. 37 females and 7 males survived from Queenstown, and 200 females and 106 males survived from Southampton. So basically what happened is whenever the Titanic sank, is they put the women and children on the boats first. So if you were a woman or a child, you had a greater likelihood of surviving. And so we also can talk about the passenger class. So that's going to be a little bit more difficult. So what you can do is you can put the passenger class into the columns and try that. So you've got a passenger class of 1, a passenger class of 2, and a passenger class of 3. So that breaks it down a little bit better. So a total of, it tells you 97 people in first class from Chalfont survived. For first class survived. 16 people in second class from Chalfont survived, and 37 people from third class on Chalfont survived. And Queenstown, 2 people from first class, 2 people from second class, and 40 people from third class. And Southampton, 101 people from first class, 101 people from second class, and 104 people from third class. And you can see that you can look that there were more females in each class that survived. So what that's telling you again is when the ship sank, they put the women and the children on the boats, and unfortunately the men had to stay behind to perish. So basically in this particular video, what has happened is so here we go. I thought that I had lost my screen recorder, but I haven't lost my screen recorder. My screen recorder is right here. And so in this particular video, we have covered the dirty data. We've covered the dirty data spreadsheet data set, and we've covered the Titanic data set. And with the Titanic data set, we made a table, and we also made a pivot chart. And so I did all that in about an hour. So I think that's going to conclude this lesson, because we talked about Power Query, and we have talked about how to upload data, talked about how to modify data, we've talked about how to insert columns, we've talked about how to delete rows, we've talked about how to change data, and then we've talked about how to make a table for dirty data, and then make a table and also amend data. And then we also talked about making a pivot chart. So I think we've talked about quite a bit in this video. So I've been talking for an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and conclude this video. This concludes lesson 2 of my advanced Excel course, and you can see that it's a lot to take in. So I hope you get some information about Power Query, and I look forward to making the next lesson for you as well.